It's the big story that we are watching today. The National Assembly is sitting today to elect its new Speaker. The person will become Parliament's 6th National Assembly Speaker. Former Defence Minister Nosiviwe Mapisa-Nqakula seems to be a shoo-in despite the opposition of some parties and movements. The DA's Natasha Matsone has also nominated MP Annelie Lotriet as National Assembly Speaker candidate for that party. Here's eNCA's Lindsay Dentlinger, who is in Parliament and joins me now for an update. Lindsay, the DA nominating Annelie Lotriet as the candidate for National Assembly Speaker. Was that a surprise at all?
Good afternoon to Nosiviwe. No, not a surprise at all that the DA is fielding a candidate, and although they were playing their cards close to their chest and wouldn't confirm on the record ahead of today's sitting who that would be, words in the corridor was that the caucus had decided last week that the caucus chairperson here in Parliament for the DA, Annelie Lotriet, would be that candidate that they would field. And we know in the past other elections for Speaker, the DA has always put up an alternative candidate, more so today in this case saying that the ANC's nominee would be making a mockery of Parliament, and hence they decided to put up an alternative candidate. But as always with these things, Tulisi's, where it's going to come down to the numbers, and so then very unlikely that she will be successful in this election. They would have to appeal to the conscience of certain ANC members who feel that perhaps that their candidate is not fit for purpose for this job, but probably highly unlikely that Annelie Lotriet will be successful in this election. But nevertheless, the opposition putting forward an alternative candidate it believes would be a better person fitting for this very important job here in Parliament.
So let's talk a bit about the the ambience in the rooms, as it were, Lindsay, because this is happening in more than one room, right, in Parliament. But significantly, it's a large number of MPs that are gathered. It's the largest number, I imagine, that we have seen in a physical presence in the parliamentary precinct.
We don't have an exact number of the number of people who are in the chamber. We will know that once the votes are tallied and we know exactly how many people have cast their ballots. But certainly in the ANC benches today, quite a large contingent. This is the first time the National Assembly is sitting since the lockdown started last year, where they have all been asked to return here to Cape Town to cast this all-important secret ballot. They didn't want to test their online capabilities. And so certainly a very jovial mood from the ANC benches. Today, MPs are spread out across more than one venue to maintain social distancing protocols. And so there are also MPs in a venue just above the chamber known as E249, and they are being called and ushered through to cast their ballot in the chamber itself. But the mood is fairly light. We saw the former Speaker, Thandi Modise, voting just a little bit earlier, just before 1 o'clock. Also, the ANC's incumbent, Nosiviwe Mapisa-Nqakula, has also voted, presumably for herself. And when her name was called, there was a little bit of whooping from the benches, from the ANC benches. So the mood is fairly light. The EFF benches, I should point out, are totally empty today. They did indicate yesterday that they would not be participating in this process. They did not agree with the fact that the President had made this unilateral decision to remove Thandi Modise and, so to speak, foist Nosiviwe Mapisa-Nqakula onto them to replace her, because, as we know, the former Defence Minister is currently facing an investigation right here in Parliament on a host of allegations related to her time as the Defence Minister. But otherwise, as I say, the mood is fairly light in the House, and I think people are also very happy to see each other after such a long absence.
Yeah, and I think we had all started to become a bit rusty, hadn't we, Lindsay, in the workings of an actual physical sitting of Parliament. How long still have we got to go before this voting process is done and dusted and the tallying of votes is done and South Africans know who will be the next Speaker of the National Assembly?
It could still be a little while still, Nosiviwe. Voting started at about 12:15 after a short adjournment, an hour-long adjournment really for them to prepare the ballots. And so we have heard from the Secretary to the National Assembly. They are expecting this voting process to take around 90 minutes. It could be a little bit quicker because we don't know exactly how many people are here. And so obviously they have factored the time allocation based on the fact that all MPs are here, but that's certainly not the case. And so probably could be another half an hour to 45 minutes before the voting process is completed. And then there will be another long lull, where the House will be adjourned to allow that vote to be counted. And that could take at least an hour. So I don't expect until the early afternoon before we know for sure who will become the sixth Speaker of the National Assembly.
Underscore for us as a parting shot, Lindsay, the importance of this position. It's one of the three top positions in as far as the three arms of state of our constitutional democracy are concerned, but just the role within Parliament itself, given the sometimes fractious relations between the various parties and the butting of heads that Kanyima Kubane was talking about when I spoke to her a short while ago, that ability to sort of navigate those intricacies while keeping Parliament effective and delivering.
Correct, Nosiviwe. This is a very, very important role here in Parliament. Thandi Modise has only been in the seat about 2 years, but she came with a background of also having been the National Council chairperson. So she had a long history of understanding how processes work here in Parliament. And as you say, keeping in check those various opinions, balancing the views, and more importantly, Nosiviwe, being impartial. We know that during her time, Thandi Modise, for example, was faced with considering whether the House should be allowed to vote in a motion of no confidence against Cyril Ramaphosa, and she had to balance her decision-making very carefully. We've got to remember the Speaker is a member generally of the ruling party, but the person has to be a Speaker for all political parties in Parliament, not only the Speaker of the party that they represent. So it's a very important role. Nosiviwe Mapisa-Nqakula, should she be elected this afternoon, will have her work cut out for her. She certainly was a minister for a very long time, but this is a very different ball game here to balance and to be a fair and impartial Speaker, and certainly it is the view of the opposition. They don't believe that she is the right person for the job, and hence they have nominated someone else, but it is a very, very crucial role, and Thandi Modise up until now has managed to do the job with a fair amount of aplomb, and has certainly been seen to be generally a very fair Speaker in that seat. And so Nosiviwe Mapisa-Nqakula will have to follow in those footsteps in satisfying all parties that they are being treated fairly with issues that they raise here in the House.
And wrap it up nicely for us then, Lindsay, with a reflection on some of the key work that Parliament has to do. On the legislative radar is the whole issue around the expropriation provisions, the property clause in the Constitution, but also expropriation as a separate item, but also issues to do with the public protector. Those are some of the many issues to navigate Parliament through and ensure that they are effective even on those.
Correct, Ulysses, where the issue of expropriation, of amending Section 25 of the Constitution, that has been dragging on now for quite some time, and there have been several extensions to allow this ad hoc committee to conclude its work. We already know that they're probably not going to make the 31st of August deadline, having again put that out for public comment. So that is an important issue that will be balanced. But as you pointed out, the public protector issue, we had expected that inquiry to get underway this month. And there's a spanner in the works there, Ulysses, and there's going to be a lot of fancy footwork having to come from Parliament. We understand that Parliament is going to appeal, challenge that ruling that found some of the rules that dictate how that process would unfold, to hold an inquiry into the fitness of office of a head of a Chapter 9 institution, and in this specific case, the Public Protector. They plan to challenge the Western Cape High Court's findings that those rules are unfair, and so that is going to be a really big issue to see how the new Speaker will take that issue forward. So those are two of the crucial issues on the table. But then we shouldn't also forget we're still in a pandemic, and Parliament will have to continue to keep a very close eye on how government's vaccination program is rolling out and keeping the numbers down. And then Ulysses, where there's going to be a very uncomfortable moment when the Defence Committee concludes that investigation into the former Defence Minister, who could become the new Speaker this afternoon, because she will essentially have to preside over that sitting when they table that report in the House. So that's going to be really uncomfortable, and we'll have to see how that's going to play out and how that report gets treated either way, whatever the findings may be of that investigation into Nosiviwe Mapisa-Nqakula.
Yeah, a position of great responsibility. Thank you for unpacking it for us there. That's eNCA's Lindsay Dentlinger out in Parliament. They're watching that voting process underway, a key position, but also, as Lindsay points out, many are the pitfalls for whomever occupies that particular position of Speaker of the National Assembly.